Good afternoon, everyone. 4 o'clock straight up on a Wednesday edition of Middays with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quiñones. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. 2 hours to play with on the 6th of August, 2025. Get in on the conversation. It's a Woosah Wednesday, and you guys can always tweet at me at RichQ on Q. Stay social and connected with us. TriX57 on Facebook, TriX57.com, live and on IG as well. Also on my YouTube channel at RichQ. You guys have been fantastic with the subscriptions, the subs going up on that. TikTok, RichQ on the mic. I hope everyone had a good Sports Tuesday. As I mentioned, a lot of NFL, mix in a little baseball today. We've got some games as it stands right now in the mist, so we'll get you updated on that. Excellent job last night. I just wanted to give a thank you to Joe's Surf Shack in Belmar, New Jersey, Lake Como. Outstanding job last night. We had another showing of the Running with the Breaks, Jersey Shore Breaks of the TBL, the podcast. The place was packed. It was unbelievable. A couple of rock stations were up there last night. The Rat 95.1, I believe, was up there. Those guys sat in with me for a little bit. Had an opportunity to speak to a lot of players. Obviously, Chris Smith, some minority owners as well of the team, some nonprofits, Big Brothers, Big Sisters. They're doing a fantastic job. And really just want to also shout out Bob Fahey of the Fahey Group. He owns Joe's Surf Shack, also owns 3 other restaurants in that North Jersey, Jersey Shore points. And he actually wrote a check last night for about $5,000 to the Big Brothers, Big Sisters nonprofit foundation organization. So that's a really generous offer. I mean, he's been on the board for about 10 plus years, and that's a very generous and kind offer. They're doing a very good job up and down New Jersey, especially in North Jersey with the Big Brothers and Big Sisters. So it's a great foundation to be a part of. Obviously, growing up, if you went to the Y, if you went to the PAL, the Police Athletic League, if you did anything with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, they try to keep a lot of the kids off the street and just do a lot with the mentoring. And they don't ask for a lot of time, mind you. So I just wanted to give them a shout out. Excellent stuff last night from those guys, and we look forward to being back there. So that's a nice little spot there in Belmar. All right, so it's a Woosah Wednesday. We'll take you up to 6, as I mentioned. Lloyd Vance in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll give you some updates on Friday, working on a couple new segments. Also for the fall, a couple different opportunities for some platforms. We are adding a couple other shows on my YouTube channel that we've already fired off, but we've been pushing out a substantial amount of Back Your Play, which you will be able to find back on SR 1029 FM, The Game, which is rebranded to now Coastal Sports Digital Network. So we will be providing them with some content, and we look forward to that. And let me give you some updates on what's going on in baseball, and then we'll get into some of the NFL. This is a hot and humid, just a sticky, nasty day out today, right? I mean, just starting to break a little bit weather-wise, but not today. Just nasty. It was gorgeous last night. Absolutely, like 75. Very nice night last night in Belmar. All right, Cubbies up on the Reds 3-0. Yankees, my God, what's going on with the Yanks? They're up 2-1 on the Rangers. Blue Jays up 3-1 on the Rockies. Blue Jays and the Red Sox playing very good baseball. The Red Sox are one of the hottest teams in baseball. They will be back in action against the Royals. The Phillies got absolutely waxed by the O's today. I mean, they gave up 5. They lost 5-1. They did nothing offensively. Suarez got tagged with the loss. I'm telling you right now, the Phillies, they are such a feast or famine. You get 9 hits, you only can push across 1 run. I mean, you're leaving on base 9 guys. That's a bad loss for the Philadelphia Phillies. That really is. It's still going to be 1-2 with them and the Mets in the NL East. Don't get me wrong. The Mets are still 2.5 back. That's because the Mets have lost 4 straight. The Marlins, all of a sudden, they had that 5-game winning streak snap. They've dropped 2 straight. But really, the hot team in baseball, if we're being honest right now, the Brewers have won 5 straight, but Boston is on fire. And how about what the Red Sox did today? They they give a monster deal to Roman Anthony. 8 years, $130 million. 8 years, $130 million for the 21-year-old who has been an absolute godsend if you're a Red Sox fan, an absolute revelation. Coming on, called up June 9th. He's hitting 283, 428 OPS, 400 slugging. He's got a couple home runs. I think he's got 20 ribbies in 46 games. And he's showing you some patience. He's showing you some power. It's one of the reasons, he was the, just highly touted #1 prospect in baseball. So he's, listen, they look at this kid and they're basically saying Roman Anthony is a future AL MVP candidate, period. And that's what they're viewing him at. And they're paying him for what they believe this kid will do over the next 10 years in Boston. Wow. 8 years, $130 million. And listen, I'll say this. The Red Sox have played exceptionally well baseball, and they're getting some very good pitching. They're getting some really timely hitting. I also think it's because the Yankees are fading a little bit. Tampa Bay's fading, and Baltimore is one of the worst teams in baseball. I don't care if they're 52 and 63. You talk about expectations, expectations versus reality. And the reality is this team should have been a lot better this season. They cannot score runs. They just have no offense to speak of. They're minus 80 in run differential. Toronto's sitting there plus 36. Boston plus 85. The Yanks at plus 87. You look at these top teams in the AL right now, even though Cleveland's 6.5 back, they can't score. But the Tigers have one of the potent offenses in baseball. Right now, their run differential is plus 80. Houston, 49. Seattle, 27. And Texas is 71. So the Rangers are 60 and 55. They're 4.5 back behind the Astros in the AL West. And they have scored their run differential, which is crazy when you think about their record, plus 71. The Angels going nowhere. We know how bad the Athletics are. I mean, that's baseball for you. And I think the AL MVP, definitely in the AL, the odds have shifted. I mean, we thought we were going to just write in Aaron Judge, did we not? Now, Aaron Judge returning, that certainly makes him the favorite. But, I would still watch how those odds move. And I'm also wondering if you guys think this, Kyle Schwarber, can Schwarber catch Shohei Ohtani when we're talking about the MVP? That's going to be an interesting battle to watch as well, right? Because right now, Ohtani remains the favorite, but Schwarber's got that surge to kind of put him in the conversation. So that definitely worth bearing out. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, we're just going to crank it up. We're going to open up the comments. 8 past 4 o'clock hour. Got some new reads to get in, some sponsors. Quick timeout. We will come back on the other side. Keep it locked in. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. Just crank it up on a Woosah Wednesday edition of Middays with Q.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
Hidden in an abandoned campground in South Jersey lies a mystical encounter with booze and spirits, where bonfires burn, shadows dance, and flavor favors the bold. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, grown-ups, it's time to reclaim Halloween. This is Witchcraft, October 10th and 11th. For tickets and information, visit witchcraftnj.com.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pesco. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
All right, a couple of minutes past 4 o'clock hour. By the way, NFL-wise, I want to get in that because Cleveland Browns have named Shedeur Sanders starter for their preseason matchup. So, again, Cubs right now up on the Reds 4-0. Yankees up on the Rangers 2-1. Man, my allergies are just brutal today with this friggin' rain. The Blue Jays up over the Rockies 3-1. Angels and the Rays are scoreless. Cardinals and the Dodgers are scoreless as well. Yankees were down 1-0, got back 2 in the fourth. Volpe was able to tie it up with a ribby, and then Dominguez scored on a throwing error. So 2-1 right now for the Yankees. Bottom 5, 1 out against Texas. They've got some, their issues I just think go deeper than what we see. And we talked a little bit about this the other day when Jeter and A-Rod mentioned that they just need to play better. Yeah, but, that only takes you so far, right? I mean, they're not a very good fielding team. They're not a very good defensive fielding team. They're just not. They're not a good defensive team, period. And they're not getting the production where they need to get production. They are the definition of feast or famine, especially when we're talking about their heart of their lineup, the meat of their lineup. Aaron Judge goes, so does that offense. Yes, Grisham's 20 home runs and Bellinger 20 home runs and Volpe, who's had kind of a up and down type of season, to say the least, especially from the shortstop position. Listen, a lot of errors. He's only hitting 220. He has not played particularly well. I mean, he's able to kind of creep that batting average. He batted 172 in July. So that batting average right now, obviously it's up in August, but we're only we're 5 games in August. He's batting 333. But again, his power numbers have not been there over the last several weeks. His last home run came against Tampa Bay, and that was in, I think, the last day of July. And that's the game that they won in extras 5-4. They went on to take 3 out of 4 against Tampa Bay. But the injuries, the Judge being banged up, the inconsistencies at the plate, the bad defense, just the issues with Aaron Boone. It's just they're not a good baseball team right now, and they can figure out a way to get that second or first spot in the wild card. They're not built to do anything. They're really not. Detroit's got staying power. Houston's got some staying power. I would not discount Seattle. Seattle has very good pitching. They win a lot of games on the road. They've got very good offense. They've quietly that catcher, that kid, Raleigh, he's just crushing the ball, man. He's got 42 home runs. Now, his batting average, you'd like to see it come up a little bit, but power behind the plate, are you kidding me? They've got some really nice players. Polanco has contributed as well. As I mentioned, Rodriguez is a really nice player. He's batting 254. He's driven in 60, 20 home runs. So the Mariners might kind of be a sneaky good team coming out of the AL. And then as far as the NL, I'm still going to side right now with the Dodgers. I still believe the Dodgers are the team to beat in the National League. They're just built for the postseason. We know about their track record. We know about their body and work and resume. The Phillies, I'm getting a little worried with the Phillies and their pitching. I really am. Now, that second of the 3-game set against Baltimore, they blanked them. And then they only allowed 3, and their offense erupted for 13. But if you look at, again, the game against the Tigers, the game against a bad rate, losing 2 out of 3 to the White Sox is not good. It's not good. So this is a tough stretch for the Phillies right now because, look, we're in August, right? So you don't have a lot of wiggle room. They're going to go back and forth with the Mets. That's abundantly clear. You got 3 against Texas, right? Coming up. They lose today against Baltimore, as I mentioned, 5-1. Suarez gets tagged with the loss. He falls to, what is he? I think he's 8-5 right now. And let me just double check. I think he's 8-5. Actually, did he get the loss today? Yeah, he pitched today, did he not? Yeah, he took the loss today. So I think he might be 8-6. But nonetheless, if you look at his last 2 or 3 performances, so he went 7 against Detroit, gave up 3 earned. Pitched well against Yankees, 5 2/3, but then the back-to-back starts against the Padres and the Angels were not very good. And he got tagged. He got saddled with those 2 losses. He gave up 9 runs combined in those 2 games. He has not won since June 29th against Atlanta. June 29th. He pitched well against Detroit. He just didn't factor in the decision, the game that they won 5-4. So I'm not entirely sold on the Philadelphia Phillies, and I'm not sold on the Mets. I still think the team to beat coming out of the NL is going to be the Dodgers. Now, as far as my thought on Ohtani, MVP, and then you got Schwarber, how are you looking at it, right? If you look at the odds right now, Ohtani is the short favorite at minus 425. Schwarber's at plus 275. Now, what would stand out is, again, Schwarber is a DH. He's played left field 7 times, but he's a DH. But he's also having a season that, if you were to be really honest with yourself and go back 10, 20, hell, 30 years ago, we would sit there and say, this is an MVP type of season. And the odds show how much of a move he has made lately. Now, the batting average is pretty, it's awful, right? It's awful. It's awfully low to a lot of people. But think about this. If you look at his line in 225, 246, 316, 402, he entered Wednesday hitting 258, 382, 591. He leads the NL in homers with 40. He leads the majors with ribbies at 94. So that pretty much, if we're kind of looking at the pace that he's at, when it's all said and done, he's on pace to hit 57 home runs and drive in 135. So, yeah, we talk about feast or famine, slug first, swing for the fences. That's all well and good. He doesn't really bring much defensive value, obviously, right? Because you're talking about 10 to 12 batting average points above league average. But 57 home runs, 135 ribbies on a team leading the division, you can make a case that's MVP. Now, you got to go back when you look at some of these soft numbers, right? Soft numbers. If you go back to 69, Harmon Killebrew batted 276. But he led the majors in home runs with 49, and he drove in 140. Now, he was alternating first base, third base. If you go back to 1970, Boop Powell hit 297, 35 home runs, and a $114. That's how many he drove in. 79, the We Are Family Pittsburgh Pirates and Pops, the old man, Willie Stargell, that's when you had co-MVPs. So one half of it was Willie Stargell, who played first base at the time, hit 281, 32 home runs, 82 ribbies, and a $126. I believe that's also the year that if they had co-MVPs, I believe that's the year that Keith Hernandez was also MVP in 1979 because he had a really good season in 1979. You know, Keith Hernandez is such an underrated player. You can actually make a case Keith Hernandez belongs in the Hall of Fame. But Keith Hernandez was an MVP along with Stargell in 79. So they both got 216 votes. And then Winfield was third with San Diego at 155. So that strengthens Schwarber's case. And then you go in 1987. Now, this is the big caveat. You talk about Andre Dawson. So Andre Dawson won the MVP in 1987. Andre Dawson played on a bad team in 1987. The Cubs were not good. They were not a good ball club. You know, they were a couple years removed away from getting to the NLCS. You know, the whole Leon Durham between the legs. The Padres went on to the World Series and lost to the Tigers. But they were not a good ball club in 1987. They just were bad. But he just had one of those seasons where statistically, you know, you can probably say Strawberry and Clark had the numbers. Murphy hit 44 that year, but you know, Murphy only drove in 105. Dawson drove in 137 on a team, as I mentioned, that was not very good. And I believe that team, that 87 Cubs team, I think they lost close to 90 games. So that kind of gives hope, right? So you're looking at a first place potentially first place team in the Phillies. And then you look at that 87 team with Andre Dawson, NL MVP, 287 average, 49 home runs, 137 ribbies. He added 11 stolen bases. And, you know, he was a very good defensive outfielder. He had 12 outfield assists. He also posted a 4.0 WAR. So that's less than what Schwarber has right now. And then you go to 1989 and Kevin Mitchell, right? 291, but what stood out was the 47 home runs and the 125 runs batted in. So point is, we've seen the not as sexy numbers. We've seen, you know, the DHs, the first basemans of the world. That year that Kevin Mitchell won it, the only other player to hit 35 or more home runs that year was Hojo, Howard Johnson. He had 36. So you're thinking, all right, well, what about a guy like Eric Davis back in the day, Jack Clark, Will Clark, Pedro Guerrero, Rhino? Those guys didn't even come close to those numbers. They didn't. Kevin Mitchell took 21st place votes. His WAR was 6.9, 158 hits, 47 home runs, and 125 runs batted in. So again, it gives you a little bit of an example of, and here's the other thing that I would be remiss if I didn't bring up. That San Francisco team won the pennant. They beat the Cubs in 5, and then they got swept by Oakland. That was the Earthquake World Series. They lost in 4, but they made it to the World Series. So the numbers, I think, again, the numbers can be misleading to some extent, but I also believe the numbers can really kind of paint a picture when you're talking about MVP odds, and you're talking a guy, you know, you're talking about a guy like Kyle Schwarber. It would be rare. It really, really would. And I remember a couple of you guys commented in. I mean, like right now, I think he's on the heels. But man, he's had a fantastic season. I mean, where would the Phillies be without Kyle Schwarber? Where would they be without him? Because Bryce Harper has not kept up his end of the bargain. He just hasn't. Marco chimes in. Q, those are outstanding breakdown in numbers. If you look at a season as a whole, DH or not, they're still monster numbers. And to your point, the Phillies would probably be a sub 500 team. Yeah. He's got good odds. I would grab him right now. Why not? You never know. You just never know. Philly Savant chimes in. Q, if you look at his overall numbers, even over the last week plus, 3 of 6, 3-run home run grand slam, 7 ribbies, sole possession of the NL home run lead over Ohtani. Also leads the NL in the ribbies, as you mentioned, third in OPB, second in OPS, and let's not forget, right around 600 slugging, which is second in the NL. He's an MVP. Could be. He's great. The one thing with Schwarber, because he is that feast or famine guy. I know I've used that a couple times already today, so I apologize. But a lot of guys, a lot of bettors will play him for that anytime home run. And I had a couple of buddies hit me up on X, and they're like, "Oh, we're playing him. We're playing him. He's on a tear. He's on a tear. He's on a tear." Well, what do you guys think he did today? As I'm building him up, he goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts as I'm building him up. But I think you can make a case for Schwarber as an NL MVP, certainly in the conversation with Ohtani as the Phillies fall to the O's 5-1. All right, let's get to some of these comments, see what you guys have to say out there. Man says, nice game, pretty boy. That would probably be in reference to Keith Hernandez. A great Seinfeld episode. That's when there was the spitter behind the bushes. That was Roger McDowell. Remember that? It was a clear, sunny day, and the Hernandez era opened the way for Phillies' 5-run ninth, and Newman and Kramer were not happy. B-Sox fan on X, that's a monster deal for a 21-year-old. I'm excited. I think he's the face of the franchise, but man, did they pay him too soon? Nah, not at all. Kid's been a phenomenal player. Plus, he got a club option for a 9th season, and obviously that's pending a physical, which will start in 2026. So that'll keep him under control till 2034. I mean, he's the face of the Boston Red Sox. He is the face of the franchise. He might, in a couple of years, also be one of the aforementioned faces in baseball, right? I mean, if you look at his numbers in just a short time, minimum 100 plate appearances. If you break it down, fourth among MLB players in on-base percentage this season, right? So you got 404 players with at least 100 plate appearances. Judge, 446. Acuna, 429. Smith for the Dodgers. Will Smith, not the other one getting jiggy with it, 420. And then Roman Anthony, a clean 400. So again, what they're doing is that the Boston Red Sox, see in baseball, I think you can turn it around fairly fast, especially if you have pitching and you get a season in which a couple teams that are supposed to be good on paper have down seasons. It just kind of opens it up. We saw it a couple of years ago with the Diamondbacks going all the way to the World Series, surprising a lot. So the Red Sox have signed the left-handed kid, the Rafaela, the Bello. They got the infielder, I think Campbell, they re-signed. So now you got the big prospects. You got the kid Mayer, who signed through 2034. Boston Red Sox are going to be a problem going forward in the AL East. They are going to be a problem for some teams going forward. All right, quick timeout, 30 past 4 o'clock hour. Got some more tweets coming out on X. Want to remind everyone, we'll take up to 6 o'clock straight up. Get social with us. You can follow along, TriX57, Facebook, IG, and X. Log on to TriX57.com. You can follow me on X at RichQ on Q, TikTok, RichQ on the mic. Quick timeout. We'll come back on the other side. Lloyd Vance at 5:05.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich. what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
Hidden in an abandoned campground in South Jersey lies a mystical encounter with booze and spirits, where bonfires burn, shadows dance, and flavor favors the bold. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, grown-ups, it's time to reclaim Halloween. This is Witchcraft, October 10th and 11th. For tickets and information, visit witchcraftnj.com.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pesco. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
All right, 432. We'll take you up to 6. Got some good Facebook messages as well, talking about if Schwarber were to win it, and a couple guys chimed in. Sergeant Delaware, he remembers when Dawson won that MVP. Would you consider Dawson be one of the worst MVP candidates of all time? No, not at all. If you're talking NL, Terry Pendleton won an MVP with that Braves team in 1991. He was not, he was a veteran guy who came over. They had that great run. They lost in the NLCS to the Pirates. That was the, what was it? The Sid Bream game, whatever the heck it was. They lost in 7. 91, I'm sorry. 91, yes. 91 was the Sid Bream game. Pittsburgh Pirates, he comes sliding in. They lost to Minnesota in 7. That was the Herbeck, hit. Was it Herbeck or Gaetti? I don't recall. But that team that year, I'm looking at their numbers right there, and Ron Gant put up better numbers than Terry Pendleton. Terry Pendleton had 187 hits, drove in 85, had 22 home runs. He batted .319. And then Gant, 32 home runs, 105 runs batted in, 141 hits. And where did Gant finish? Gant finished 5th. Gant finished 5th in the MVP voting right there. So you had Bonds coming in at 149 hits. Bobby Bonilla finished 3rd. So you had 2 players from the Pirates go 2-3, Bonds and Bonilla, and then you had Pendleton win it. I would say Terry Pendleton, to Sarge's question, one of the worst to win it. I would even say Steve Garvey. Steve Garvey won the MVP in 1974 for the Dodgers. Steve Garvey wasn't even the best player on that team. You can argue that Steve Garvey was probably the 4th or 5th best player. That team had Davey Lopes, Bill Russell, Ron Say. They had Buckner. They had Jim Wynn, who put up monster numbers that year. Yes, Yeager. Garvey that year hit 21 home runs, 32 doubles, 200 hits, 111 RBIs, batted 312. That's a pretty damn good season for 40 years ago. His WAR was 4.4. Ron Say, his WAR was 4.8. He had 151 hits, 20 doubles, 18 home runs, and his batting average was 349. And let me see how they had the MVP voting that year. Oh, wow. So Garvey, I totally forgot about this. Garvey won the NL MVP the year that Lou Brock had 118 stolen bases. Wow. And, his WAR was only 3.5. 118 stolen base. You can't even fathom that. 118 stolen bases in one season. Lou Brock went from, being a great base stealer to an all-time. I mean, that's unheard of. He went from 74, 52, 63, 53, 51, 64, 63, 70 stolen bases. And what made this even more remarkable, Lou Brock stole 118 bases when he was 35 years old. When he was 35 years old, you should not be stealing 118 bases when you're 35 years old. You shouldn't. Ricky Henderson, and you're talking about, God rest his soul, longevity. Ricky Henderson stole 130 bases when he was 23 years old. When he was 35, he stole 22. I mean, the game has changed, right? The way pitchers, what you can do, what you can't do, more inclined to the balk, the pickoff move. It was a different game back then, but man, that's a staggering number. So I would say 74 season. I would say the Pendleton season. Eckersley won an AL MVP as a closer, which I think, I'm Now, I thought, Stargell and Hernandez, I would say Hernandez had the better season than Stargell. Remember now, it's a regular season award. It's a regular season award. And it's not like the NFL. This is where people kind of go and they get themselves in trouble with this. When they talk about the NL MVP, which typically is always a quarterback. It's always a quarterback. But what someone will bring up was Mark Mosley. But if you ask any then Redskins fan, not Commander fan, Redskin fan about Mark Mosley, he was, they would say, the best kicker and the best player in the NFL that year. He converted 20 of 21 field goals. He also kicked the game-winning field goal to clinch the NFC East title. He kicked the game-winning field goal in the NFC Championship game to send Washington in the Super Bowl. So a lot of people will look at Mark Mosley's year and say, well, he's a kicker, right? I mean, typically you reserve that type of award to a non-kicker, and that's fair. That's fair. Like I don't have a problem with somebody saying that, but it's a strike shortened season. It was 1982. I'd have to go look and see, the best. 1982. I mean, what are we looking at? Who put up some gaudy numbers, NFL stats in 1982? Let's see. So you got the team leaders: Marcus Allen, Rookie of the Year; Chip Banks. Remember Chip Banks? Went to USC. William Banks, Chip Banks. He was Defensive Player of the Year. Let me see Dan Fouts' numbers. And Taylor got the AP Defensive Player of the Year. He was incredible that year. Strike shortened season, though. Dan Fouts, his numbers in 1982. This is 9 games, 17 touchdowns, 11 picks, 2,800 yards. Let me see. I'm looking at comparison right here. And that year, San Diego lost in the divisional round. Washington beat Miami in the Super Bowl. So the MVP voting, Mosley, Fouts, Marcus Allen got some love. Joe Theismann got some love. Danny White got some love. But it was also a 9-game season. So I don't know. When people sit there and kind of hem and haw, is Mark Mosley winning the MVP if it's a 16-game season? No. If you look at Dan Fouts' projections through 9 games, he's going to throw for, let's see, if you went 16 games, he's throwing for well over 4,300, 4,400 yards, 4,000 yards, probably 29 touchdowns and 12 or 13 picks, and he's going to win the MVP. So football, obviously, it's a little different. Again, it's reserved more for the the non-kicker, the quarterback, really, the quarterback. But it's not reserved for kickers. It just isn't. Philip Banks, Fresh Prince, not Chip Banks. Yeah, he had a nice little career. He had a couple flashes, right? A couple years with Cleveland, then I think he finished his career with Indianapolis. Nick and Wife are big time Phillies fan and baseball fan. Q, that's a pretty good breakdown. I would still agree if you look at the WAR for Andre Dawson that year, he was clearly the best player in baseball. Now, your argument about 79 between Willie Stargell and Keith Hernandez, that has a little merit. I would have gave it to Hernandez because he plays one of the toughest positions in baseball. He had a great glove at first base. He did. Keith Hernandez, definitely a borderline Hall of Famer. I would say borderline Hall of Famer. I look at his numbers. He batted close to 300 for his career. He was a 5-time All-Star. He was a 2-time World Series champ. Obviously, he won with the Cardinals in 82 and then with the Mets and that great team in 86, right? Game 6, Boston Red Sox. Here we go, Game 7, Ray Knight with the big home run. NL MVP, 79. But he also was an 11-time Gold Glove Award winner, 2-time Silver Slugger winner, NL batting champ. St. Louis Cardinals Hall of Fame, New York Mets retired his number. I think he was an exceptional player. I really do. The other thing too is, Hernandez is funny. When he got traded, if you remember, when he got traded from St. Louis to the Mets, he said after the trade he believed his cocaine use while playing for the Cardinals was kind of the catalyst for the trade. And that he even played a game while under the influence, although he couldn't remember which one. And if you go back to, he also testified in 79-80 that 35 to 40% of MLB players were using the drug and that it kind of dramatically declined after the season. Now, he said he did not use coke after being traded to the Mets, but a lot of players were popping pills and smoking and joking and taking coke and everything in those mid-'80s, early '80s in baseball. We know that. I mean, hell, look at the whole Mets squad, right? I mean, that's utterly ridiculous. But he was a great, great, great catalyst to the team. But you kind of knew that team, the aftermath. You had that drug suspension. And then, basically, he was kind of that poster boy for the '80s. And, they just never really kind of, they 86, 87, you win 88, 90 games, you should win a division. They didn't. St. Louis did. But 88, the Mets should have they should have been a World Series team. They had a horrible series against the Dodgers. Greg Jeffries had a bunch of errors in that series. And, you looked at Hernandez and Carter. They were kind of back end of their career. They had some issues. Hernandez only played 95 games. Carter, I think, batted like, 242. And, everyone was praying he hits that 300 home run for the kid. But they should have won more, but they didn't. But I still believe that Hernandez definitely is Hall of Fame worthy. I definitely think he is a Hall of Fame worthy player, right? It'll be very interesting to see exactly where, if he ever, he might be kind of like late arriving to the party, right? Because you're talking about a guy that batted over 307 times in his career. Very good player. So to kind of Nick's question and also Kevin C. and Jackson about Schwarber, I think Schwarber has an opportunity. If he continues on this pace and say Otani kind of goes south a little bit, Schwarber might step in there. He might. He might step in there. All right, 446, quick timeout. Don't forget Lloyd Vance will join us in the 5 o'clock hour. We'll get in his little NFL with him. Some interesting stories. We're going to take a look at some wide receiver player props. We've been kind of going through the quarterbacks, some of these running backs with some of these seasonal stats, seasonal props. Also, preseason is among us again in the NFL tomorrow. So we'll kind of go through a couple of those games with Lloyd. We'll kind of go around the league. We always talk about these coaches in the hot seat, and I'm really starting to believe more and more as this training camp preseason kind of goes on, and you listen to McDaniel's comments with the Miami Dolphins. I mean, you want to talk about a coach that might be on borrowed time. It might be McDaniel. And I saw that ESPN, the mothership, acquired the NFL Network and Red Zone, and the commish is even thinking about doing a college version of NFL Red Zone, college football version of NFL Red Zone. So we'll give you some of the numbers on that acquisition coming up on the other side. Got a lot of more comments coming in as well. We will get into that. As I mentioned, Lloyd Vance at 5:05. Keep it locked in. Woosah Wednesday edition. Middays with Q right here on TriX57, my YouTube channel, and X as well. We'll take you up to 6 on this 6th of August, 2025.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
Hidden in an abandoned campground in South Jersey lies a mystical encounter with booze and spirits, where bonfires burn, shadows dance, and flavor favors the bold. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, grown-ups, it's time to reclaim Halloween. This is Witchcraft, October 10th and 11th. For tickets and information, visit witchcraftnj.com.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pascoe. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
All right, 449. We'll get back to some more of your comments. Kevin chimes back in Jackson. Q, who would have the most underrated, as you like to say, non-sexy MVP season NFL-wise? I mean, John Elway won it in 87. But if you go back, that was strike season as well. Jerry Rice was arguably the best player in the NFL. He scored 23 touchdowns in 12 games. Like, think about that. So you had Elway in a strike shortened season led the Broncos to 10 wins, 4 losses, 1 tie, 15-week season. Okay. Passed for over 3,000 yards. Now, he missed 3 games due to the strike. Okay, fine. But Elway was a prolific passer. Jerry Rice scored 23 touchdowns, pretty much 2 touchdowns a game. I mean, I don't know how you see those numbers and you go, And then even think about this, I'll give a little more love to the non-quarterback positions. Peyton Manning in 2009. So that was his second straight MVP season. So Peyton Manning, uh, you know, you're talking about a year that Chris Johnson had 2,000 yards. And if you look at Manning's season, it was probably statistically very average for him. Now, the Colts won 14 games, and they started the season off with 14 straight wins. But I don't know. I looked at Johnson's year, definitely. And then Salim, who's the Washington fan, Q, I'm not going to say Mosley because, again, you got to look at the numbers and what he meant to Washington. But, yeah, I would probably say as a then Redskins fan, Fouts should have won it. Yeah, I mean, you choose a kicker, right? I mean, in a couple games, in 9 games, Dan Fouts was an all-pro that year. He was a Pro Bowl quarterback. If you believe in those types of awards, I don't care about the Pro Bowl. Doesn't really move me at all. But definitely, I would say that Fouts, if you looked at the projections, 2000 and what was the year Gannon won it? 2001, 2002, right? So Gannon, I think more or less, very good. And we start to look at that comeback player of the year. Priest Holmes had a remarkable season. Remarkable. Now, if you go back and you look at his totals that year, he had 1,700 yards. I think he added 500 plus receiving yards. He probably had 20 plus total touchdowns. So I think if you look at those numbers and you stuck them even in today's NFL, that's an MVP-like season. That's a hell of a season. I would not have gave it, to Rich Gannon that year. And look, there's been other seasons. Eagles fans, you might like what I'm about to say. Randall Cunningham in 1990 should have won the NFL MVP. You had, Montana, Sims, Marino, Boomer. You had some great throwing quarterbacks, prolific throwers of the football. But Cunningham's numbers, and I'll put them up. I mean, I know the Eagles fans, they've memorized those numbers. So 1990, right, the perfect weapon. 1990, here's Randall Cunningham's numbers. Played all 16. Led them to a 10-6 record, threw for 3,400 yards, 30 touchdowns. Now, wait, I haven't even added the rushing numbers. He also had close to 1,000 yards rushing. So now you're talking about 4,400 yards, and you're talking about all those touchdowns thrown. I haven't even added the other touchdowns, if he had any scrambling rushing touchdowns, because he was an unbelievable running and scrambling quarterback. Now, that doesn't get him in the Hall of Fame. Pump the brakes, please. But that is a NFL MVP worthy type of season. That is a worthy type of season. It's amazing that they just could not. Montana's numbers that year, pedestrian. Average for Montana, 3,900 yards, 26 touchdowns, 16 picks. Pedestrian. They were pedestrian numbers. For Montana, and for that team that won 14-1, And oh, by the way, no three-peat. They lost to the Giants in the NFC Championship. If I had a vote, yeah, definitely Randall Cunningham that year. He was arguably the best quarterback in the NFL, the best player in the NFL. So there have been, I think, guys that have gotten overlooked. We always argue the running back, the running back. I mean, you can go through the test of time. You can go all the way back in the 60s. You can look at Paul Hornung. Paul Hornung won over George Blanda in 1961. If there was ever a kicker in NFL history that should have won an MVP, it was Blanda. Blanda was a kicker and a quarterback. I mean, think about that. If you had fantasy football, you geeks out there would have went nuts. He threw for 3,300 yards. He tossed 36 touchdown passes. And by the way, as a kicker, he converted on 16 field goals, 64 extra points. That's funny. D chimes in Q. What do you think is going to go on with the Cowboys and Mike? I don't know, man. I feel as though we'll talk a little more with Lloyd about that. I feel that situation might not resolve itself. I think Jerry's at the point where he just doesn't care. I know Jerry Jones pretty much came out and said he would find it hard to believe if Micah Parsons was suited up and ready to go for the Dallas Cowboys on a Thursday night when they open up the season on the road against the defending Super Bowl champs. So listen, no one knows, man. I know Jerry Jones. I know you're always critical of Jerry Jones, and rightfully so. You think he's a little too old school in his approach. That's accurate. Look at the way he does business. You're talking about, this is not 15, 20, 30 years ago. I understand all of that, but I feel as though Jerry Jones is not going to budge here. And I feel as though Jerry Jones got annoyed at Parsons kind of barking back. ESPN says he's confident he's going to be there, but then Jerry Jones says, 5 hours later, I'm not absolutely confident that, he's going to be there. So who knows? And you can't have a handshake. That's another thing. You just can't. You can't. You put it in writing, man. Put it in writing. What are we doing here? A handshake? I'll get to you. Or not even a handshake, a verbal agreement. A handshake, you would think you honor it, but also put it in writing. Look, you got a player who, as I said, is a very good player. Final year of his rookie deal. It's going to pay him $21 million. He wants more money. Is he worth it? Yes. Do I think there's a sentiment of overrated? I do. And I'm not going to change my tune on that. But again, you're talking about the devil being in the details. There is a lot of money potentially involved in this. And I'm thinking Jerry Jones would probably love to remedy this and get it taken care of. Now, are they going to open up the checkbook and look at what TJ Watt did? His contract in Pittsburgh, 3 years, $123 million extension. He's the highest paid non-quarterback at $41 million. I don't think Jerry Jones wants to pay Micah Parsons $41 million a year. I don't believe that. I really don't. I think if you back Jerry Jones in a corner, he's like, nah, no. And that's why he's wavering. Him saying he's absolutely not confident, that's almost telling Micah Parsons, I'm not going to budge here. I'm not going to budge. Jerry Jones is slick. He can kind of play that game. And if they fail to secure an extension here, then listen, it will prove to be costly. Yes, you need him on the field because your defense is that much better when he's on the field. And it's going to bite him in the butt. Now, is that one of the reasons that I felt this team was going to be a bad football team? No. I had other reasons for that. CJ chimes in on X. Q, did you see your boy Chris Sims picked your Denver Broncos to win the AFC West? Maybe he was tuning in. Perhaps he was. I saw that. He said it's what did he call it? A kind of take, I don't want to say take a year off, a recharge year, which is pretty much what I said. Take a step back. You're an older team. You recharge the batteries. You don't need to keep getting back to the AFC Championship every single solitary year. You're allowed to have a down year, and it's probably going to be this one. All right, 5 o'clock straight up, 60 in the book, 60 to play with. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. Lloyd Vance coming up on the other side, 5 o'clock on the East Coast. This is a Woosah Wednesday edition of Middays with Q. We'll get to some of your comments as well on the other side, and we'll see what you guys have to say football-wise. Lloyd's going to join us top of the hour coming up.
what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
Hidden in an abandoned campground in South Jersey lies a mystical encounter with brews and spirits, where bonfires burn, shadows dance, and flavor favors the bold. Ghosts, ghouls, goblins, grown-ups, it's time to reclaim Halloween. This is Witchcraft, October 10th and 11th. For tickets and information, visit witchcraftnj.com.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
All right, 5 o'clock straight up. Lloyd, in a couple moments, will take you up to 6. Vince says, speaking of fantasy, Travis Hunter has to be third pick or better. Liam Cohn on Rich Eisen show saying, truly believes Hunter can win both Rookie of the Year. I mean, he's probably the 35th overall wide receiver in the league, right? If you look at ESPN, I mean, is that third round? I mean, you kind of know who the top players are going to be, right? You know, your Jamar Chase, Robinson, Jefferson, Saquon, you know, Neighbors, Brown. I'm curious to see what the kid does. I mean, he's listed as starting wide receiver, backup, cornerback, right? But again, that'd be something. You win Offensive Player of the Year, and Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, they're putting a lot of stock on this kid, right? I mean, you're talking about the number 2 overall pick. I mean, that would be a season among seasons, would it not? I mean, is it possible? Sure. Anything is possible. I mean, we've seen success with 2A players before in the NFL. I mean, all you got to do is look at Deion Sanders, right? But you know, none of them have done what Cohen is saying is possible for Hunter. And you know, we're gonna see them, right? Week 1, Carolina and Jacksonville. So it'll be interesting. I'm curious to see the percentage of snaps, right? Because if you go back to college, he had 753 offensive snaps, 776 defensive snaps, and he had another like 30 on special teams with Colorado. So the kid's a player, no doubt. The kid is absolutely a player. It'll be interesting to see how they utilize him, in which fashion they utilize him, and how they work the reps and the snaps. That's always going to be the key. It's always going to be the key. Can the kid play? Yes. Absolutely. And you're going to see right away. You'll see right away. You will see right away if the kid can be a big-time player. Now, I think let's pump the brakes on, you know, a couple things regarding the kid. Let's just kind of pump the brakes. I would sit there, and again, I kind of caution people. I know we get very enamored right away with how we look at stuff, and we go back and we're looking at this kid in college, and we think right away this kid is going to be, that same type of player. I'm not necessarily going to say that at the moment, but I listen. He's got my attention. He's got my attention. Definitely has my attention. 5:05 on a Whistle Wednesday as we bring in our guy, Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on SR 1029 FM. The Game on Mondays 8 to 9. You hear him during the week with me. We were traveling yesterday on a Tuesday, so we get to double dip with Lloyd today and or tomorrow. And of course, we'll start our Football Fridays right around the corner. How are you, my friend?
Doing great, Q, man. We're almost there.
We are almost there. So, yeah, I do want to get your thoughts. I guess Cohen was on a Rich Eisen show. I didn't watch it or hear. I just was pulling up kind of the transcript on it. How do you think they're gonna? I mean, right now this kid is. If you look at the depth chart, I know we don't really read much into that, but he's listed as starting wide receiver. He'll be a backup cornerback. The kid took a lot of snaps on both sides of the football last year. Cohen comes out, Liam Cohen basically comes out and says, I think this kid could be what? Defensive player of the year, offensive and defensive rookie of the year, pardon me, as a wide receiver and cornerback. That's high praise for this young man, is it not?
It is, Q. And we just have not seen this in NFL in a very long time. I mean, you're talking about Deion Sanders in the 90s when he did it, the 95 season in particular, when they won a Super Bowl over the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I tend to think Travis Hunter, tremendous player. I scouted him, watched him a lot when he was at Jackson State for my work for the Black College Football Hall of Fame. And he is a special talent, Q. And the thing is, I've always thought he was a better corner. Coming out of high school, he was the number one rated corner, and he's just a very fluid guy. So it's going to be interesting to see how many snaps he takes either side of the ball. The big thing, though, I always caution people on is the physicality of the National Football League. It's, not Big 12 football, and he's not going to be running free and not getting jammed the way he was. And let's not forget, he still has to tackle people, if he's playing corner. Imagine Derrick Henry coming around the corner and he's got to tackle him. So, a lot to factor in there. You hope for the best for him. But, yeah, that may be a little hyperbole, him winning both those awards.
Yeah, I mean, he looks very, just skinny. I mean, he's 6'1", $185, and you're right. I would not want to tackle, a back like Saquon coming downhill or Derrick Henry coming downhill. Speaking of the AFC, the Browns said that they will have they've named Shedeur Sanders a starter preseason week 1. There's such a I feel as though this conversation will never kind of end until we get that week 1 starter, or they decide to either have the kid as a week 1 starter, have him as a backup, or release him. Like it's always going to be under a microscope. Now, you and I both know a lot of times in preseason, especially when you get that second or third game, if I'm sitting you, you're pretty much locked up your spot. I still maintain Flacco is going to be the week 1 starter for Cleveland. There seems to be a lot of speculation or thought if Cleveland's going about this the right way, if they're setting up Shedeur Sanders for failure, if he's getting a fair shot. I know people have kind of dodged and dipped that kind of conversation, but we'll see what he has. Now, the problem is we'll come back on the air on Monday and it's just going to be a overreaction, right? If the kid goes 4 or 5 one series for 65 yards and a touchdown, insert him as a week 1 starter. If he struggles a little bit and takes a couple sacks and has some poor decision making and throws a pick, he can't play. Like it's preseason, right? I mean, yeah, you want to get the reps in there and see what you have, but how much can we really tell what this kid is or isn't come Friday night?
Yeah, Q, it's an opportunity for him to go out there, but you can't build his whole evaluation on preseason games. We know he's probably going to play against, the 3s and the 4s in the depth chart. And we'll see how many snaps he gets if he plays a whole half, a quarter. But Stefanski clearly, I don't think he has a plan. Q.
I agree.
If you look at their depth chart, um, they wanted Pickett. He's a little banged up with a hamstring injury. And then you got Flacco, who's a veteran. They're not going to play him. Dylan Gabriel has not looked that great in practices as well. And he's a little banged up, so he may not play. And they're signing Tyler Huntley. So
Yep.
they're just adding more quarterbacks into the mix. And it's just crazy. So for a coach on a hot seat, you think he'd have a better perspective. But I definitely want to see what Shador can do. In brief clips that I've seen and people that I've talked to said he hasn't done that bad in training camp, but this is an opportunity for him.
Yeah, go back to what you said. They don't have a plan. They really don't. I think Stefanski is, maybe just hoping for the best. Like, how sometimes like your bills start to stack up and you're like, it'll solve itself. Like, no, it doesn't happen like that. I feel Stefanski, that's his mentality right now. We'll fit. It's all going to work out. It's not. And then, think about it too, from a selfish standpoint. I understand you are trying to save your job first and foremost, which means you need to win some football games. But you also have another, 50 something odd men on that roster. And now you're wasting another year. You're looking at some of these players and you're wasting a potential year of their prime. Like, to me, that's a major, major, major issue. And I know it kind of goes unnoticed a little bit because we don't typically talk about that. But you've got a great player in a defensive end, Myles Garrett. This guy's not getting any younger, man. He's going to be 30 something years old. He's, already, he's a Hall of Fame player. He's a fantastic player. You don't have a plan. If I'm on the defensive side of the ball, I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are these guys doing? I got to leave it all on the line. And this guy doesn't have a plan because we don't know who the hell is going to be the quarterback week one.
Yeah, it's got to be frustrating to some of the guys in that locker room because clearly they don't, have a long-term plan. And it's a situation where I think they're going to be pretty bad. You know what I mean? They're already in the basement in that division. And I don't think that's going to change. And Garrett, yeah, he's getting $40 million a season, but you keep losing games. Eventually you're going to get frustrated. And he may be a chip that they could kind of trade eventually, but I just don't see it happening. But he's going to be there, and they're going to try to figure this thing out. But it's going to be interesting to see what Shador can do. I'm also going to see what Jerry Jeudy can do,
Yep.
and Jerome Ford, their running back. So a lot of moving pieces with the team. But when you look at the roster, as we did a couple weeks ago, there's just not a lot there in terms of talent offensively.
I want to stick a couple more minutes with the AFC. I feel every time Mike McDaniel opens his mouth, I think someone asked him the other day, good morning. He's like, it's not a good morning. And they're like, why not? He's like, you're one step closer to death. I'm like, whoa, you're in Miami, man. Like, relax a little bit. Like, have a little fun, will you? I feel as though he is on borrowed time, man. He is on borrowed time, and they got to win, man. They're in win now mode, are they not?
They clearly are, Q. And when you look at Miami, it's like, all right, it's now or never, because he came and they caught lightning in a bottle, had a great season his first season, put up a lot of stats. Obviously, they did not play well in the playoffs when it was cold outside, but they just kind of floundered. And there is some talent offensively on this team, but McDaniel, I kind of agree with you. He's on a hot seat. We talked about this on my show, coming off an 8-9 season. There's just not a lot there. And then you're hearing about the players kind of grumbling. This Tariq Hill situation, he's not happy. And, the whole Tua concussion thing, how's that going to play out? And, just guys kind of griping. And then you have Teron Armstead retired, one of their best offensive linemen. So a lot of pressure on Mike McDaniel. And he's another coach. He better figure it out quick, because Stephen Ross, the owner down there, I think he may be looking at resumes.
Yeah, and how come McDaniel didn't kind of check Tyreek Hill, with some of those comments?
Yeah, you would have thought he would have, and that's like, okay, you got to be that strong figurehead. You got to be that head coach that says, "Hey, I don't care who you are. I'm rolling this team with an iron fist. It's my plan." And kind of the players are running amok there. And Chris Greer, the general manager, he's got a piece in this as well. He hasn't done that well in the drafts, and they've had defections and defensively. Yeah, they got Minka Fitzpatrick back, and they're getting their pass rusher back, but it's a situation where there's just not a lot there.
Yeah,
So
and
it's not probably going to be good for them either.
yeah, and when you have a player coming out, kind of like Micah Parsons did, questioning the play calling and the scheme, that's exactly what Hill did, talking about, obviously his bread and butter, and that's the offense, talking about, wide receivers and when they should be utilized. That's really never a good thing. That's never going to sit well with any organization, let alone a head coach. And typically the guy that opens his mouth the most on that team is Hill. He's the loudest of all. So now, as you mentioned, Mike McDaniel has some unwanted drama that he's got to take care of for a team that paid a lot of money to a quarterback that is, injury prone, concussion prone, and New England's getting better. Who knows what the Jets are going to be? And Buffalo's still the team to beat in the AFC. So we talk about Cleveland maybe having a little bit of a, bad down year, if you will. Miami might be there as well. All right, 16 past 5 o'clock hour. So we'll continue to go around the league. You've got, and I've got some receiver player props. So as we're kind of doing our BYP back your play version of Middays with Q, and of course BYP 20 is your promo code for fresh roasted coffee. We'll have the audio up on our Buzzsprout, which again you guys be able to get on Amazon, Apple Podcast, and of course Spotify. You've got some wide receivers that you believe will break, or we'll talk about their props for the season of 2025. So fire off a couple.
Yeah, number one, I try to look at some guys that either need to have a bounce back or they're going to take a step up. And one of the guys that a lot of people around the league are kind of high on, and we'll see if he clicks with Michael Penix Jr., is Drake London. Maybe you can bring up his numbers, but last season, 17 games, 157 targets. So he's getting a lot of passes thrown to him. He had 100 catches, 120, 1271 yards, and then 9 TDs. So I think he has a good opportunity to kind of make some numbers, but I wanted to look at what his projections are.
So London's projections, you're talking about if we're going to go over on these this year. Give me his numbers from last season again.
Yeah. 100 catches, 1271 yards, 9 TDs.
100 catches. So right now he's at, wow, bottom. Man, they have him really. So let me actually go through it like this.
Yep.
He's at 1, 2, 3. His projection sits at 1159. And right now, highest total under is 1050. That's juiced. Actually, it comes in at minus 110 from DraftKings. So he's sitting right around 1,100 yards.
Yeah, I think he can easily get that. And, I think he's going to probably be the primary target for Penix Jr. in that offense. And they want to drive the football down the field. Obviously, Bijan Robinson is going to get his touches. Maybe they'll get Pitts back involved again. But I think London can hit that number very easily. And yeah, I think he's going to have a big year. So, yeah, I would definitely take the over with him.
Yeah, and I'm going to stick with my squad for a second. I think even if it's going to be Russell Wilson to start, I still think Malik Neighbors, his numbers last year, he had 109 receptions, 1,200 receiving yards, just 7 touchdowns. He had, again, he got banged up, concussed, had a couple drops. But again, if you're looking at over this year, he's sitting at 1050. He's going to get over 1,000 receiving yards. He ranked first in target share, second in air yards, if you believe in that kind of stuff. And again, really good route runner, but he also had one of the worst quarterback situations in the entire league. So now it's marginally improved with them adding Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and even if you throw in there Jackson Dart, right? So, I think his numbers are going to improve.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors is an explosive player, and you talk about the downfield plays that he had last year too. So I think he could easily hit that yardage mark. Russell Wilson still can throw a pretty good deep ball, and he's going to hit him on his slants, and it's just going to see okay, Scatterboo, how does he factor in here, and the tight end from Penn State Johnson, how he does. Does he get some catches? Well, but after Neighbors, I just don't see there's a lot there. You know what I mean? I think he's going to be a feature receiver. I think in terms of target share, I think he'll get about 120 targets this year, and you should expect him to get 100 catches.
Well, he had 170 targets last year
Yeah,
with bad quarterbacking play. Now, don't forget, Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be healthy. He's a good player. You still got Slayton, a veteran, Theo Johnson, a tight end. They're going to try to run it and open up first, but I do like those numbers for Neighbors. Let me give you one more, and then I'll throw it back to you. I don't know if you have this. This might make Vince giddy. So I just pulled up Travis Hunter. I was kind of on the fence. 695 receiving yards. They're going to force feed him the ball. And here's the other thing. You got Brian Thomas, right? Who led all rookies in receiving yards last season. Now, you lose Ingram. So you move away from Kirk. You move away from Ingram. Um, before they select Hunter in the draft. I think he's going to get some targets. I think this kid's going to be right around 850 to 900 receiving yards. I think he's going to have some games where he catches 5, 6 balls for like a $120, a $130. And I'm okay with saying this with a little more confidence. I think Lawrence is going to try to develop a rapport with him early and often. And if you think about this, you're talking 75% of the route share. So he's going to find a way to get open. But I love that number. Over 695, think about that. You're talking in a 17-week season. In a 17-week season, what are we looking at? We're looking at how many yards if he goes 17 weeks and he just gets me, man, he does 45 yards? 45 yards. He's blown it away by 80 yards.
yeah, Q. And the key thing with him is going to be health. I definitely think he's going to get his opportunities. Yes, Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be eating first, and then they have ATN coming out of the backfield. But I definitely think that you're going to see Hunter get his opportunities. They clearly want to play him at receiver first, so he definitely is going to get his catches. Think a lot of bubble screens, a lot of quick slants, the type of passes that he caught at Colorado. So I think he'll have a good target share, and then he'll easily get to 700. So I would take the over there.
All right, we agree on that one. All right, who you got?
Yeah, this is a good one. This is a player another one that's ascending. A lot of people have their eyes on him going to fantasy football drafts. It's Seattle receiver Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think he's going to, Cooper Kupp did come there, but I think with DK Metcalf going to the Steelers, he's going to have his opportunities. His projections are 90 catches, 1105 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So I think he easily, being the featured guy, that he will get the opportunity to have them. Now, his target projection is 132. I think that's probably about right. They cut Noah Fant the other day, their tight end. So there's really not a lot of other pieces there. You have Bobo there, you got Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker out of the backfield. They're not really, Charbonnet's a good pass catcher, but Walker's not the best. So I think that Smith and Jigba is going to be the guy they're looking to move the chains. Last year just shows you he had 100 catches, 1130, and 6 touchdowns. So they just expect him to beat those numbers just by a little bit from last year, and I think he can do that.
How about Lad McConkey? His over is 950 receiving yards, minus 115, ESPN bet, and DK as well. Had a really good rookie season. I thought he asserted himself nicely, right? You want that kind of alpha receiver mid-season with Justin Herbert. 52-plus receiving yards in 11 straight games, which is not bad. He had 94-plus yards in six games, or 6 times in that span. I think, let me see what we got here. Finished ninth in YPRR, finished with 1,149 yards in 16 games. I mean, 950 seems kind of low, does it not?
Yeah, it definitely does. I think he's going to get his opportunities. I think he gets 1,000 easily. You did the math earlier, with the 17 game schedule.
Yeah,
As
that's true.
he's healthy, he's going to get that number.
Yeah, that's probably why you're not going to get a ton of value like on the plus side. A lot of these are minus 110, minus 115, minus 125. Like I'm looking down. I'm trying to find a man. I can't really find any type of value. Well, as I look, you can fire off another player or two.
And a little stat here. Last year it showed a passing league, 21 receivers over 1,000 yards last season.
That's a
So
lot.
yeah, so these guys are going to eat. They're going to get their opportunities, and with the rules, there's not a lot of jamming. There's PI call
That's
all the
true.
time. They're going to get their chances. So a guy I think is going to have good chances as long as he's healthy and his quarterback's healthy as well as Puka Nacua from the Rams. He came on the end of last season. Obviously, wasn't the best in terms of health for him. Uh, he had some injuries. He only played in 11 games last year, but he still had 79 catches, 990. So he almost got that 1,000 in only 11 games and 3 TDs. So his projections are 109 receptions, 11461 yards. That's a little high, and then 7 touchdowns. So I think he'll definitely hit the receptions there. The yardage, they're expecting him to have a huge game. Many good games with us. And the key thing is Stafford. He's already a little banged up. Wonder if he has to play with Jimmy Garoppolo, how these numbers would change.
That's what I was going to ask you. I mean, look, he plays hurt all the time. I know he's dealing with an aggravated disc. I think he's got an epidermal as well to help with it. So they're calling it week to week. They're going to be cautious with that. You hear that? Are you more inclined? You shy away a little bit with those numbers, or you still think that Nakua? I mean, I'm looking at these EP projections. 1,466 receiving yards. So if you're going by a healthy Stafford, then you should feel pretty confident. Any concern though with Stafford in that back, if he potentially misses some time, then obviously the production's going to drop.
Yeah, I think he's going to get his targets and receptions. That's just a lot of yards, and we definitely got to monitor Stafford, how he's going to come through this, and they're going to baby him throughout training camp.
Here's one that I find interesting, and I just had it, so forgive me. It was DJ Moore. So his under is 1050, a minus 110 bet MGM. And last season he went under 925 and a half. Now the offense kind of stumbled towards the finish line. Maybe I'm getting sucked into how bad Caleb Williams has looked. You got Ben Johnson taking over that offense. They drafted Loveland. They drafted Burden. To me, I think he falls short. Like I told you, I'm not a huge fan of Caleb Williams. I think they want to run the ball more this season because that, again, you don't have to worry about this kid. You're running it. Suppose of him dropping back to pass, you don't have to worry about 68 sacks, right? I mean, they have to utilize their backs more. One of those backs is still relatively young. I mean, Deontay Swift's only 26 years old. It's not like he's had a lot of wear and tear. So I just look at those numbers and I'm more inclined to play the under.
Yeah, DJ Moore is definitely a guy that, fantasy football wise, don't draft, kind of stay away from it. And I think his numbers are going to be down, particularly, Johnson is probably going to want to spread the ball around, but he likes bigger receivers. And I think he's going to go with Roma Dunzier, who's sitting there. He had a pretty good first season in NFL. He had 54 catches, 734, 3 touchdowns, and that was in limited duty. So I think he's going to have his opportunities, and that's going to eat into what DJ Moore's share is. And he also talked about Loveland, who I liked a lot coming out of Michigan. So I definitely think Moore may be down this season.
I agree. You got any more wide receivers?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, Q. And everybody says, just like Tomlin always has a winning season, this guy always gets 1,000 yards. Mike Evans. So
Okay.
Yeah, Mike Evans for Tampa Bay. His projections are 80 receptions, 1029 yards, 9 TDs. So they're expecting him to get another 1,000-yard season to break the tie that he has right now all time with Jerry Rice. And I tend to think the way Baker was throwing the football last year that he's going to have opportunity to beat those projections, because in only 14 games last season, he had 110 targets, 74 receptions, 1004. We know he got that on the last play of the season, over 1,000 yards, and he had 11 TDs. So they look for him in the red zone. So I definitely think I'd go with the over on the touchdowns. The touchdowns is only 9 for him.
I think Baker Mayfield's going to have a big year, man. He's just turning into a prolific passer. I mean, we can talk about his size. You can talk about him being inconsistent. You can look at, the first arc of his career, but that offense is set up to score like 28, 30, 35 points a game. I think everyone's going to have an opportunity to eat in that offense.
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying, oh, okay, Liam Cohen's now in Jacksonville, and, did he give a rebirth to Baker? But I definitely agree with you. I think they've turned the corner, and it's their division to lose. Maybe the Falcons could give them some competition, but other than Jesse Bates, they have a lot of young guys on that defense and a lot to prove. So I definitely think the Bucs are going to have a good season, and Mayfield.
I was talking a little bit about this before, when you look at the league right now, and you talk about it's a passing league, an offensive league, and you go back 20, 30 years ago, remember, a running back getting 1,000 yards was something. A wide receiver getting 1,200 yards was something. A quarterback thrown over for 4,000 yards was something. But it has drastically changed over the last 15, 20, 25 plus years in the NFL. I mean, do you believe, we are now kind of coming into this, I don't want to say era of the NFL where it's going to be routine for running backs to rush for 1,500 yards, quarterbacks to throw for 5,000 yards because the way the offenses are and because of the rules now?
Oh, that's a good question. Q, it's some weeks I'm like, yeah, I agree with you when I see the Lions putting up 50 points and the Bills putting up 50 points. But it seems like when the weather gets a little colder outside, you're not going to be able to put up those huge passing numbers as in the past. And yeah, a lot of teams are playing in domes now. But I think the numbers for the receivers kind of may have peaked last season. And then the running backs are interesting because we talked about that position and the physicality and you just can't afford to put all your eggs in one basket, but they had that rebirth last season. I don't know, 1,500 is a lot of yards, you know what I mean? And a barometer guy is Saquon. A lot of people are saying to me, is he going to get 2,000 again? And I just think everything came together well in terms of health. The offensive line had that consistency. And yeah, I just don't think he's going to hit those same peak numbers. So it's going to be interesting to see if any of the running backs approach 2,000 this season.
All right, 5:33. Hang tight. We're going to take a quick time out. I want to talk a little more NFL with Lloyd Vance, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, kind enough to join us. We'll take you up to 6 o'clock straight up. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back on the other side.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pesco. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
All right, I mentioned that was a very quick timeout, 34 past 5 o'clock hour. I pulled this up. I was talking about the baseball MVPs and some players that have had down years. Andre Dawson won an MVP on a losing team. Willie Stargell and Keith Hernandez were co-MVPs. And a couple guys were asking me about the NFL and some of the worst MVPs. And I went back and, again, I remember the year that Mosley won it. It was strike shortened season for Washington, and everyone looked at Dan Fouts, and you got a kicker, making 21 of 22 in a 9-game season. Offhand, and I'll tell you, well, I'll put you to the test here with a couple of these. We're talking, and I know you'll remember some of these seasons. There was 1990 is one of them. Cunningham. Cunningham, the year he put together in 90, but Joe Montana won it. That's the year Cunningham had 4,000 total yards and I think over 35 touchdowns, and Montana had a very pedestrian. Cunningham almost had 1,000 yards rushing.
Yeah, I remember that. He came up. He decided, they decided, all right, we're not going to go for the 1,000 yards and in the last couple games of the season, and he should have had that opportunity. The key thing everybody always talks about is Montana came to the vet and beat the Eagles in a combined fashion that season.
Was that 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter? 3 touchdowns?
Isaiah Jenkins had a bad day that day. And,
Toast.
Yeah, it's very subjective a lot of times, Q, when they're voting for these MVPs. And you'd like to have some of the other positions, a running back, a receiver, have a legitimate chance. It's truly a quarterback award. And they kind of say, okay, this is going to be the guy for that season. Lamar Jackson had, some people were saying he had a great last season. Lamar Jackson's numbers were better than Josh Allen. He cut down on his interceptions. He threw for over 40 touchdowns, and his rushing yards were almost as good as in the past. So, it's always a debate, and it's kind of like, okay, maybe they deserved it. They didn't. I always find it crazy that Jerry Rice never won an MVP.
So I pulled up Jerry Rice. If you looked at his numbers, Jerry Rice had 24 touchdowns in 12 games in 1987. Think about that for a minute. 1987, strike shortened season. His numbers in 12 games. He had 65 receptions, over 1,000 yards, and 22 touchdowns. That's pretty much 2 touchdowns a game. And that year, Elway won the MVP with 19 touchdowns, 12 picks, and he threw for 3,100 yards.
Yeah, it's crazy, and the writers, they vote for it, and they're subjective. You know what I mean? Like, some of these guys are like, all right, that's their guy. And so maybe some guys put in their ballot too early. You know what I mean? Maybe they don't factor in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Montana's season was better than Elway's season that year. And remember, too, that year they got absolutely destroyed. The Niners did against Minnesota. That's the year that Anthony Carter went off in that playoff game.
Right. And that Vikings team was very good. Joey Browner on defense.
Oh, yeah.
About AC.
Yeah,
on
Wade
offense.
Wilson was the quarterback. Yeah, Anthony Carter had 200 receiving yards. And then I mentioned Peyton Manning won the year that either Chris Johnson or Priest Holmes had, the years that they had. Priest Holmes in that first year with Kansas City. It is subjective. Like, even last year, you couldn't go wrong with saying Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, or Josh Allen. You couldn't have gone wrong if any of those quarterbacks would have won.
Correct. And if we're saying it's a quarterback award, yeah, that would be the subset. But then all the Eagles fans are saying, hey, Saquon should have had a good look, because he was the engine that carried the Eagles, and Jalen Hurts, he had a great season as well. But I definitely think Saquon should have been more in the conversation. But it's just crazy how sometimes these things shake out. I know for the Pro Football Writers Association, we kind of have our own separate awards that we give. And sometimes it doesn't match up with the AP one that the NFL goes by in terms of MVP.
Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us. 5:40 Wednesday edition, Middays with Q. Get social with us as well. You can follow Lloyd at Lloyd. Good job, Lloyd Vance's Insider Football, Monday 8 to 9. Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, which, according to Angel now, has rebranded to Coastal Sports Digital Network. Lloyd, kind enough to always join me. Also, BYP is up, the audio. We broke down a lot of the divisions. We'll throw this up there as well. Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, Micah Parsons. You know, at one point yesterday, yeah, he's going to be good to go come Thursday night when they open up the season. The Cowboys do on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles. Then an hour later in the witching hour, well, I'm not so sure that um, we're going to have Micah Parsons available on Thursday night when we take on the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, okay, which one was it? Is this situation going to get remedied? I feel as though Jerry Jones does not want to pay Micah Parsons $41 million.
which is crazy, you know. Michael Parsons, 12 plus sacks the last 4 seasons. You know what I mean? He's just a dominant player. We know defensively they've had their issues, particularly uh, stopping the
Yep,
pass, and
yep.
he's a guy they need. So Jerry Jones has actually been trying to talk to Parsons. He really needs to sit down with David Mulugata, who is the agent for Micah Parsons, and try to hammer this thing out. Obviously, we just saw T.J. Watt get his money from the Steelers, and Jerry's not helping himself. You know what I mean, Q? And we've been saying this forever. He should just be the owner. He should not be the general manager. He needs to do a better job in terms of building a roster and negotiations. And this just shows it, this animosity that's there. And he kind of handcuffed himself, paying CD Lamb all that money and Dak Prescott,
Dak
who's playing
Prescott.
at $63 million a season.
But you let's give Jerry Jones the benefit of the doubt for a second. He understands how valuable Micah Parsons is to the team and their defense, does he not? He just
I would
is it.
hope
Well,
so. Pay the man. That's the way I'm looking at it, because you have to
I
have
don't think he wants to pay him $40 million a year, though. I just don't.
yeah, and it's going to be who blinks first, Q. You know, and the good thing is he's holding in, so he's not getting hit with that 50K a day that they can't just write off anymore. So he's in camp, but they have to figure something out. Michael Parsons is 26 years old. He's still young. He's still in the prime of his career. Uh, as I said, 12 plus sacks every season, and they built everything on that defense around him. So I tend to think he will be in the lineup when they play the Eagles on September 4th, but it's going to be some animosity for a little while.
Hey, listen, Prescott had to go and deal with this as well, right? I mean, you had a drawn out contract negotiation. That's no one wants issues with the contract, right? It's a negotiation. So ultimately, you know, I come to you, you come to me, we sit down and we come up with something that we believe is fair. But when I walk away and you walk away, I'm not going to be 100% satisfied and you're not going to be 100% satisfied. That's what a negotiation is. When you get one side that gets everything they want, then you've screwed yourself, right? So at this point, I mean, you got to find a happy medium. I just look, he's not on the field. They lose a lot defensively. I just don't think they're going to be a very good football team this year. I really don't. And speaking of which, I'm watching these videos from Steelers training camp, and I know you're not supposed to get all again sucked into these. Aaron Rodgers looks like he is just an old man, and I'm telling you, we might want to bookmark it. He's not lasting 17 weeks. He's just not. I don't see it. I think Aaron Rodgers should have retired when he had the chance. I'm shocked that he came back after the Achilles injury. I'm not shocked. Let me check that. I'm not shocked because of the ego. He didn't want to go out like that. I thought last year would have been his final year, but I have a feeling this is going to end really, really badly for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers, because he looks old and slow.
Yeah, the Aaron Rodgers, 41 years old, going to be 42 soon, and he's not Tom Brady in terms of ready to play at that age. And you're right, Q. I think it's going to be kind of a disastrous season. When we did our predictions, I said, okay, Mike Tomlin, first losing season, because I just don't see it in terms of Aaron Rodgers, and they waited on him, and the construction of this roster, particularly their offensive line, is not the youngest, and they've had some inconsistency, particularly Broderick Jones, their left tackle. So, yeah, I agree with you. That's going to be a tough one for Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers this season.
Man says A Rod and DK, great fantasy matchup. He's going to have to get rid of the ball. quickly. I mean, we'll see if he even plays in the preseason. You look at some guys and the body breaks down. I mean, realistically, you look at, first of all, you're not better than Baltimore. You're not better than Cincinnati. You're better than Cleveland because Cleveland is a bad team right now. But there's just, if Rodgers goes down, I mean, you got who? You got Will Howard. You got Mason Rudolph still on the roster. Yeah, I just think I think it's set up where he's taken a lot of hits over the last several years. He was sacked 40 times last year. That's the most times he's been sacked since 2018. He's been sacked 571 times in his career. So, this notion he's always had great offensive lines is a little skittish. I don't believe in the Steelers' offensive line, and I think he's going to get battered. I think he's going to get bruised. I think he's going to take a lot of hits. I'm pulling up their schedule right now. They've got the Jets, who has a pretty decent defense. Seattle can get to the quarterback. Patriots, if we talked about their defense over the last several years, young players. The Vikings, and which I want to get into in a moment. Then you got the Browns and Cincinnati. So I don't see him making it 17 weeks. I really don't.
Yeah, Q, it's going to be tough for him. They're going to try to build around Warren and Caleb Jones, a rookie young running back, but Arthur Smith, eventually he's going to have to cut the ball loose and look for Rodgers to make some plays down the field. And I'm not seeing it. And then we always say about Rodgers, is he a team guy? When things start going wrong, is his ship going to implode? So, yeah, Q, I don't think it's going to be a good situation in Pittsburgh.
So I don't know, again, how much stock we want to put into this, but there's been conflicting reports. If you listen to other yappers and talking heads, that are basically saying, hey, watch the film on J.J. McCarthy, right? This kid's going to be an average quarterback. He's not going to be a great quarterback. He's not going to be above an average quarterback. I know Cowherd said something based on Cosell's film. I know in the study, I know the Star Tribune, a couple of the writers basically said, you know what? We might have to bring in a backup. Vikings might have to bring up a backup to kind of compete with this guy and push him a little bit. Now, I'll throw out my crazy scenario in a moment, but do you believe this kid, even coming off that injury, like the expectations for this kid? I mean, they're not winning 14 games. I don't believe they are. Do you think he's going to be a serviceable pro quarterback, or was it a little bit of gaslighting by Harbaugh and whatnot when he was in Michigan?
Yeah, Q. First, we got to see how he comes back from that really tough knee injury. That was a bad injury that he had. He tore a couple ligaments in there, and by the reports I've seen, he has not done well, as you were saying, in training camp. And they handed him his job. So there's really not a lot of competition for him. And it's like, all right, it's do or die for him. And then you have Kevin O'Connell. He played himself into extension, having a great season, winning 14 games with Sam Darnold. But it's like, was that lightning in bottle? And I tend to think they've taken a step back and everything fell into place last season. But yeah, J.J. McCarthy, they better run the football first and foremost with Aaron Jones and the rest of those guys in the backfield. But yeah, he only threw about 15 passes a game at Michigan, Q. So did Harbaugh even trust him when he was at Michigan? So it's going to be interesting to see how he does as a pro quarterback.
He petitioned for him a lot. I mean, I think he's going to struggle because he's a rookie and he's coming off an injury, right? And you can't expect him to duplicate the success that Darnold had last year, which leads me to the list. You got another quarterback holding on to the clipboard, a very expensive one down there in Atlanta. And Kirk Cousins, my guy, Captain Kirk, he still has a pretty good relationship with Kevin O'Connell, right? They're friends. They talk. I'm sure they're in contact at times. Now, I'm not going to say you bring him in to be the starter, but don't you want a young quarterback to be pushed a little bit? I mean, I think one of the reasons Indianapolis signed Daniel Jones is because we want a veteran to kind of push a guy that we're kind of on the fence with in Anthony Richardson. So can you envision any type of scenario where Kirk Cousins is brought in as a backup back in Minnesota, just in case, maybe this kid goes down? I put up their depth chart right now. Sam Howell, no. Brent Rippon, no. Max Brosman. I mean, this guy looks like an accountant, but he's on the roster. So
Yeah, I mean, it would probably take Atlanta eating some of that money, that huge contract for Kirk Cousins. But yeah, if a team needs a backup, they definitely should give Atlanta a call and bring him in, and they would have to work out that contract. But they do need somebody to push JJ McCarthy, because they've handed him the job, and it's just like, all right, is this kid ready for it once the real season starts? And the NFL is just so different than college. SC was a pretty good player in college. He won a national championship, but he's going to be expected to throw the ball about 25 times or so a game. He's got Richard Jefferson, Justin Jefferson, excuse me, and also a pretty good tight end there. But it's like, all right, is it going to be enough for the Vikings?
yeah, I would agree with that. All right, don't forget, we might double up with Lloyd either tomorrow or Friday. Catch him every Monday. Does a fantastic job talking everything football. Lloyd Vance is Insider Football. Give him a follow on X at Lloyd Vance, SR1029 FM. The Game, always kind enough to join us. And of course, our BYP Back Your Play portion of the show, taking a look at some of these wide receiver player props for 2025. All right, we might do it again tomorrow. We might do it again on Friday, but I always appreciate you jumping on board for a couple moments, my friend. Thank you so much.
All right, Q, talk to you later.
All right, you got a quick timeout.
Hi, I'm Bruce Pesco. I'm very fortunate. Years ago, I found something that I genuinely like to do, and it's something that helps other people. What I do is help people transition from traditional health insurance into Medicare. I've been doing it here in Atlantic County for more than 20 years. If you're getting ready for Medicare, call me for a free consultation. 609-484-9800.
This is what the Down Beach Seafood Fest is all about. It's about community, it's about friends, it's about culture, right? The food culture in Atlantic County is rich.
It's going to be interesting when ESPN decides they're tired of McAfee. I guess he went off talking about bum blank blank suits at ESPN. Talk about that 1.6 billion WWE deal. I get it. You got a lot of power, you get a lot of eyeballs and a lot of revenue coming in, but man, you are poking and poking and poking and poking the bear, and he is what where he's eating, and eventually the act is going to wear thin, and ESPN's probably going to say, "See ya, see ya." I mean, hell, what happened with Stern with XM, right? Aren't they? I heard they're going to pull his show as well. I mentioned the mothership acquiring the rights with that monster deal with NFL Red Zone, and now the commission is looking to do a college football version of Red Zone. Like I said, man, the NFL, the NFL, the NFL. So the NFL looks like that's almost a done deal. NFL Network is going to be acquired by ESPN. Red Zone, NFL for equity stake. Wow. I mean, it just shows you the monster that the NFL is. And the fact that ESPN has a substantial amount of money and stake and ties into all these entities, right? But again, you just keep poking and poking and poking the bear like some of these guys do, and it's going to it's going to bite you in the butt, man. And I know they signed that 5-year deal with WWE live premium events, including WrestleMania as well. But man, the good thing is the fact that now they got NFL Red Zone. Scotty Hansen is still going to be back, which is a good thing. That's always a good thing. All right, let me get you caught up to speed some baseball scores before we get out of here on a Wednesday. I think the Yankees did win. Toronto is just absolutely railroading Colorado right now, man. I didn't think Toronto was legit. 16-1 right now over the Rockies. Rays and Angels knotted up at 4. Dodgers up on the Cardinals 3-2. The Marlins up on top of the Astros 5-2. We already told you Schwarber 0 for 4 for the Phils today. Suarez takes the loss. They lose 5-1. Giants double up the Padres. Guardians beat the Mets. Twins over the Tigers. Yankees 3-2. There we go. Stop the bleeding a little bit over the Rangers, and the Cubbies over the Reds 6-1. So the Yankees pick up a much needed win before they trek and get set to take on the Astros. They're actually coming home for that. That's a 3-game set. They'll have 6 at home, the Astros, and then Minnesota Twins, and then back on the road against St. Louis and Tampa for a quick 2, as we like to say. And again, good stuff last night. Joe's Surf Shack in Belmar, Lake Como, as I like to say. Good stuff from the Fahey group and Bob Fahey. The hospitality, everyone was fantastic with the Run-In with the Breaks pod. You can check that out on the Jersey Shore Breaks website for the TBL. We've got a substantial amount of contact. It's Jersey Shore Breaks, TBL.com. Tryouts coming in August 23rd, St. Rose High School. For anyone looking to have an opportunity to be a pro baller, we'll be out there as well, broadcasting. So they also got their golf outing coming up. And again, that will be at the Eagle Oaks Golf and Country Club, Farmingdale, New Jersey, about an hour plus away up the Parkway. So that'll be a fun event as well. All right, so tomorrow we are back in the saddle. Oh, hold on a second. Mike Reed wants to come in. Are you a salmon fan? If so, how do you make it? I don't mind salmon, upstream, downstream. I like salmon, but you got to grill it. You got to grill it, Miguel. You got to grill, Michael. You have to grill salmon. Salmon is meant to be grilled, period. Grilled salmon, fantastic. Fantastico. You get that fresh, flash frozen, thawed out filet. There we go. Pat dried a little bit, little seasoning, little salt, little pepper, marinara. You got to have it that way. You have to. Yeah, anything you can stick on the grill, stick on the grill. That's the way I look at it. Anything. Steak, grill it. Throw a couple baked potatoes on there, bake them up. Salmon, grill it. Now, you can do the skin side down, which is recommended on the grates. You kind of peel it, a little lemon. But yeah, salmon's very good. Salmon is very good. Salmon is great. Mini oven baked. There you go. Yeah, I would agree with that. Salmon is delicious. Absolutely delicious. Little brown rice, right? Little garlic bread on the side. Little baked potato. That's not bad. Not bad. Yeah. Striper. Ooh, striper's good. Tell you what, in the wintertime, I will suggest you guys a little snapper soup. That'll warm the belly. That'll warm the insides. Put a little hair on the chest, as we like to say. Snapper soup. Best snapper soup ever was at Charlie Brown's restaurant back in the day and the pub, which is right around the 70 Airport Circle. The best. As they say in Seinfeld, the best, Jerry. Have the swordfish, the best in the city. All right, got to start wrapping up. Good stuff from Lloyd Vance. Good stuff on the comments. Back in the saddle on a Thursday. And then, of course, we'll start with our Football Fridays. We'll get that audio up on Buzzsprout as well. You guys have a good Sports Wednesday. We always want you to be safe, be sound. We'll be back in the saddle tomorrow from 4 to 6. And again, as always, I'm Rich Quiñones. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Give us a follow on social media. Always appreciate our good friends over at TriX57, TriX57.com. And with that, have a good Sports Wednesday. Be safe and sound. Hasta luego, buen día.